being barefoot more is a really simple starting point for folks. Just like if you're wearing shoes all the time, if you wear shoes in the house, you wear shoes into your backyard, you wear shoes when you take the bins out, you wear shoes, when you're jumping in the car going fuck man, your feet are never in a position where they can just express themselves.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. My goodness, do you have bad ankles? Have you got jacked up ankles because you didn't tap to a footlock, or you rolled it when you're playing footy, or you kicked a pole and tore a ligament? Like, you've got bad ankles and you did nothing about it. We want to help you fix your bad ankles because we believe it will improve your BJJ. And so we're going to break that down a little bit. Like, what do you do? I got that bad ankle. I've rolled it 15 times. I do rehab. It's no good. Or, I just don't tap to footlocks because who needs ligaments anyway? All these kind of things. I believe that because in jiu-jitsu we don't do as much work on our feet as some of our other grappling cousins and other athletic pursuits, we kind of get away with it. People have got bad ankles. Like, crazy story, Fabio Colloy, who's one of the top guys at Alliance, top featherweight. He fought Paulo Miao back in the day, 10 years ago, and folded Paulo's big toe into his calf, like completely.
Ooh,
yeah,
toe hold.
Toe hold. Snapped his ankle, and Paulo just let it happen and ended up taking Fabinho's back.
Of course he did.
It's like, take the ankle. I don't care, right? And those guys, the Miao brothers, are the kind who are like, snap my knee.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I will happily sacrifice that connective
in order to win.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're a guard player, you can get away with it. But when you look at wrestlers and judokas, even though they get injuries, they've got great ankles. They've got the dexterity on the feet. They've got the agility. They can move. We tend to sacrifice it in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I guess going back to like the fundamental sort of use of your ankle, if you look at any athlete that's good on their feet, soccer players are a great example.
They're pretty good.
I always played soccer growing up. I played soccer till I was like 20.
The man knows how to take a dive.
Been thinking about going back.
Oh,
yeah.
Come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
But I know anyone I train roll with who's played soccer, usually pretty hard to take down.
Good on the feet.
Good on the feet, right? Athletic legs. Wrestlers, judokas, sports where the goal is to stay on your
balance.
Feet. They are, oddly, good on their feet. This athletic leg thing. Now you can look at certain, and this concept of the athletic leg is like, you're like, I can't follow. But you look at, say, some dude that like works out upper body at the gym all the time. We see these dudes when you go to Fitness First, and they're jacked in the upper body, and then they've got these little toothpick legs. Now, and I'm not trying to have a go at the disproportionate distribution of muscle mass on their body, but their legs are actually neglected to the point where there is very little athleticism.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not carrying the same amount of muscle mass, but they're not springy, they're not coordinated, they're not intelligent legs. No. And people are like, what do you fucking mean intelligent? Like intelligent like a soccer player. You look at the foot shit they do.
The footwork's
that's
incredible.
that's like a pianist.
Yeah.
Doing their thing. Like the coordination in those feet. And so in jiu-jitsu, we don't really need that.
No.
Now, and you look at, like, I often look at this when you see people come out, you see it more in the heavyweight divisions. Like you watch Gordon, it's just this flat-footed stepping. And that's not having a dig at anyone because that's the sport, right? It's really about connecting and then.
Well, I guess it depends on the person.
Depends on the style.
You do see if you've got someone who has more of a wrestling background, like a Gary Tonin or
PJ
Barch, they are so.
That's right, and it stands out to us.
But that's more of an exception than the rule.
That's right, and so I think the jiu-jitsu doesn't demand that of you. It can if you want to play like that, but it doesn't demand it of you. So for a lot of people coming in and training, they join a jiu-jitsu academy. There's probably, unless you're showing up to a gym that is like really big on the wrestling side of things, there's probably not going to be, like if you're not coming in with athletic legs, you're probably not going to build them there.
That's right. And you can get away with it. If you're a kind of guardero, if you're someone who's like, no, I play guard, I pull guard, I play off my back, this is what I do, then okay, yeah, you can kind of get away with it. But where you cannot get away with it, my friends, is in real life. Like if you have to keep your balance, or if you have to walk up some stairs or down some stairs, you know, and if you have to squat, and this is where it comes through for me, I'll have someone who's so good at jiu-jitsu, and you think, wow, they're so athletic, and that you see their abs, and you're like, wow. And then you go, all right, I just want you to do a bodyweight squat.
Show me those abs again.
Yeah, could you just do your workout topless? Like, it's just a requirement of the gym. Sorry. Yeah, if you could just put on a little bit of lip gloss. So here's the thing. You go, okay, squat, and they're struggling, right? They'll elevate on the toes because ankles are tight. The heels will come off the ground. They're like, oh, I'm squatting. You're like, no, that's not. I need your heels to stay flat. And they put their feet really wide and they lean forward and
knees come in.
Yeah, it's all over the shop. And so you're like, wow, this is a super basic quality in terms of being able to control your body. And you can't do it because your ankles are fugida. That means in Portuguese. So here's the thing. We need to improve this quality because squatting is so good for our bodies. And also having agility is also really good. So let me highlight this. We used to do this at Taekwondo, but we did this at Judo, where someone's holding one leg and the other person's holding a leg, and you're holding like the lapel, and you kind of hop in a circle. You go, okay, now we're going to hop back the other way.
Yeah.
And what is so funny to me, I actually did this drill with one of my jiu-jitsu classes in Melbourne. Everyone's calves blew out. Everyone's like, oh, my feet, my calves, I'm down, coach. No. Like people just blew out, and then they could barely walk off a minute worth of drills.
Yeah.
And you're like, surely there needs to be a bit of correction here.
Yeah.
And
do you find you get thirsty at training? I do all the time. I'm a sweaty human and I need to hydrate. Now the biggest problem is by the time you're thirsty, it's a little bit late. You need to hydrate. And that's why we got Sodi. Sodi is sponsoring the show. We've got all the colors of the rainbow. Great flavors here. We've got salty citrus, salty pineapple, salty berry, and my favorite, salty grapefruit. And they will be releasing 2 new mystery flavors soon. So why do we need this? It's going to prevent our muscle cramps. It's going to help our energy delivery. And it's also going to mean you're less tired, which is an advantage when you're training. If you want to maximize your jiu-jitsu and feel good when you're rolling, you need to get Sodi. And when you purchase, enter the code Bulletproof20 at checkout for 20% off. Oh, yeah.
And surely some level of physical conditioning would be appropriate.
Yeah, and it's not
arena.
It's not to say you have to be able to dunk a basketball or some such crazy business, but you will have to defend a single leg at some stage. You know, you might have to defend a sweep, and you're going to have to hop on your leg. And if you can't balance through your ankle or stabilize, you're going to fall, and the chance of maybe a knee injury or even a further ankle injury, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a couple reasons why we don't have great ankles in BJJ. One, you don't necessarily have to have great ankles to be great at jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely not.
There's that. But then 2, it's this pride thing. Oh, I don't tap the footlocks. No. So it's just a straight footlock. But actually, you every time someone's yanking on those ligaments and you're not tapping to it, you're accumulating a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
And the more you don't, you're all good till you're not. You're like, oh, I never get tapped on this. Snap. And now you've got a ruptured ligament, and now maybe you've got to have some surgery. And that becomes your bad ankle. And that then means you've got a less functioning knee, less functioning hip. And it's one of these things that just has a cascade of effects. And we don't want you guys to get injured or more injured than you already are. We want to undo that shit and get you being primed athletic monsters. So maybe what we can talk about is a little bit about things people can do which will improve their ankles.
Yeah. Just from I just wanted to add from a human movement perspective, like looking at the whole body, having strong feet, which the feet are the ankles, and you could argue is the knees, is the hips.
Yep.
But, feet and the ankles kind of one and the same. That is like a foundation of a strong, durable human.
Yep.
In the same way that having kind of thickened skin on your hands and a reasonable grip is also part of that. But even more so the feet, because you're on your feet all the time. And so if we take it away from jiu-jitsu for a minute, but we just talk about general athleticism, like that for me is almost like the base of the pyramid.
Yes.
Because you can't build athleticism if your feet and ankles are a wreck.
Yeah.
Right? Simple as that. You can, maybe you can strap them up, get back out on the basketball court, like you can bypass it to an extent. But to develop like this actual physicality that is unassisted and is, something that you naturally possess without needing to rely on accessories, it starts with the feet.
Yeah, and just if we go a bit further down the track, they have shown that people who look after their feet when they're older are less likely to fall and break bones.
Right.
So you actually have greater longevity and quality of life. Because, I mean, you could be on a bunch of drugs in a wheelchair and just have someone pushing you around. But if you want to just get around your home and live your life on your own terms, you got to be able to stand up and sit down out your chair. You want to be able to bend forward. The people who neglected their feet, neglected their ankles, that choice was taken away from them.
Yeah.
Because they took falls, they had hip replacements, they broke their arms, and then eventually they were at a point of disablement that they couldn't live their lives on their own terms. And we don't want that for you. But the first step that I always point to with people with the ankles that are less than optimal is the rolling of the feet with the lacrosse ball, cricket ball, whatever kind of ball you like, and then the stretching of actually the lower calf, the soleus, Achilles, because typically people will maybe stretch their upper calf and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. But actually the thing that really helps you get lower in the squat is working the ankle mobility. So finding a way to get your hip lower, and so getting your hip down towards your heel and pushing your knee over your toe. Because this is typically where people do not stretch. Bent knee.
Yeah.
So you can definitely stretch your calf with a straight leg, which is more your gastrocs, your upper calf. That's what the main thing people look at. But what we're talking about is improving that ankle function. And there's a bunch of ways you can do it, but getting down, like I like to roll the feet just as a preparatory thing to help you, but then getting into that low squat position is usually, that's the challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. There are folks out there who just have, and I've encountered a few, who just have ankles that are naturally tight.
Yep.
And they will never be able to squat with a flat foot all that comfortably.
Yeah.
That is a thing. But that is not the majority. There is a large portion of people who have suffered ankle injuries, like myself playing football.
Sure.
Sprained it really badly, never let it heal properly. I have this swollen kind of mutated ankle as a result.
I just thought that was Joe's bone density.
Yeah.
I thought it was just growth hormone.
Yeah, I wish it was.
Joe's
JT.
got these Jacare bones, bro.
No, that right ankle's a mess. And that's the same knee that I did the ligament on.
Oh, shit.
Maybe there's a connection there. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
But as a result, that ankle has always been more exposed. Like it's really easy for me to re-injure it. In my first years of jiu-jitsu, I did it a bunch. Just stepping, defending a takedown. Pinch some scar tissue and it flares up again. That's something we got to be mindful of, right? So, you might fall into one of those two categories. Or you might just be tight because you don't move much.
Yeah.
And you wear shoes that restrict your feet all day. And you're not really doing stuff in the gym, so you're not expressing ranges of motion that should be inherent to your physicality. And so now that we're telling you, you're like, all right, let me check this out.
Yeah.
So it's very probable that, like I would say, at least 50% of the people I work with have tight ankles.
I would say more. I would actually say that like the vast majority of people, even if you don't do jiu-jitsu, will have tighter ankles. It's actually always a surprise to me if someone can just do like a really good ass to grass squat.
Yeah.
And typically it's not because their ankles are good. It's because their hips are good. They'll be able to pop straight down and you're like, oh, actually your knee is not actually moving that far over your toe.
Yeah.
And so even if you're not someone who wants to do big, heavy squats, it's not actually so much the problem. It's your ability to get down and up and down off the ground.
Yeah.
Really is what it translates to. And in jiu-jitsu, that's bloody important.
And it's hip function, right? Because you think like if you don't, like just from that gross mechanics perspective, if you don't have ankles that allow you to squat down deep, you are probably never really going to squat deep.
You won't.
And so in that way, then your knees don't get like that full flexion.
Yep.
and your hips don't get that full flexion.
You're not getting the lubrication.
Yeah, so then because of that one thing, these two major joints in your body are just not getting used to their full extent.
Yeah.
And that brings about its own problems.
And also you're going to compensate. So when you finally go, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do squats. I'm going to XYZ. You're like, man, I can't squat properly. And you use your back too much because you can't get your knees over your toes. Your hips go further back. You lean further forward. You're like, man, every time I do squats, my lower back hurts. You're like, what's going on with that? Well, actually, the thing that we generally advocate for as a stopgap measure, it's just a Band-Aid, it's just an interim thing, is to elevate your heels. Now, plenty of people out there do it, but they never get past that.
Yeah.
They just chock their heels or they wear weightlifting shoes, and that's for life. And that what it does by elevating your heel, it takes the ankle out of it a little bit, which allows you to get deeper into the squat position, which is awesome. It's actually really good for you to get that benefit. But if you don't spend a bit of time in that lower squat position and trying to push your knees over your toes and working your ankles there, it'll just never change. And I think, why do we want you to do this? We don't want you to get any more other injuries. We don't want you to be like, yeah, go to the gym. The boys, the bulletproof boys, they say, oh, I got to lift. And then you got bad ankles and you're like, oh man, I kind of jacked my back up doing squats.
Yeah.
And then you get something else. And then you're like, oh, like it does flow up. Like Joe was saying, the feet as the foundation for athleticism, you know, poor feet, poor ankles, bad knees, bad hips, bad back, it flows up. But if we can actually spend some time, you know, stretching your calves, working on stability in the ankle. Now, here's something that we don't typically do in jiu-jitsu, hopping. Like, it's just not so much a thing. And I've definitely, since Joe brought it up, I can't remember how long ago it was, maybe 6 months, a bit longer.
It was just after my knee rehab.
Yeah, right. Maybe
a few years now.
Yeah, but we started talking about the benefit of doing hopping as a proprioceptive thing. Just, you know, 1 or 2 sets on each leg, hopping 10, 15 times to help switch on that whole chain. Your hip, your quad, your hamstring, your calf, all the proprioceptors around your ankle, for just reducing your chance of injury.
Yeah.
And you don't really see people in jiu-jitsu doing that. Like
no.
Hopping, jumping. Like jiu-jitsu warm-ups might have you jogging or star jumps and stuff, but not hopping and stabilizing, which is something that we do in our program.
Yeah, which really does expose the feet, the ankles, doesn't it? Like you can't...
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want the best gear for BJJ, you need to go to pariathletics.com. These are our guys. They support the show. George, great guy, great creator, awesome colors, awesome styles, and also the best fit. It feels great. And that's the thing. It's not just that it looks good, it feels good. And the thing that for me, I love the most is I can wear the stuff at jiu-jitsu, but then also they've got that other side, the cool side, where you can wear it off the mats. And they are our exclusive partner in apparel. If you want to get bulletproof gear, you've got to go to pariathletics.com. And when you buy anything at checkout, enter bulletproof20 for 20% off. Oh yeah.
You can run around, do the high knees and the kick, heels to butt with a flat foot. But the hopping drills, you gotta have strength. You gotta have integrity to the ankle joint and to the foot to be able to do them well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. Like, I mean, any other sport, right? Wrestlers, judokas, people sprinting, football players, everyone does it.
Yeah, they're doing many variations of that.
Yeah.
You always see them doing like an A skip or a counter step. It's actually, I used to do a lot of ladder drills in Taekwondo because my coach Carlo, he used to get out the speed ladder and he used to make us do the most complicated drills so that we would have better footwork for Taekwondo. But I actually found that helped me a lot when I came to doing boxing and other things where you needed better footwork. But it's like, footwork isn't taught in jiu-jitsu.
No.
No one's doing speed ladder drills at BJJ.
The other, because I was going to say, like, being barefoot more is a really simple, starting point for folks. It's like if you're wearing shoes all the time, if you wear shoes in the house, you wear shoes into your backyard, you wear shoes when you take the bins out, you wear shoes, when you're jumping in the car going, fuck, man, your feet are never in a position where they can just express themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So I would argue, just being barefoot more often is like the really easiest starting point. People might look at you funny if you go to the shops barefoot. Fuck them.
Yeah.
or get barefoot. You can wear barefoot shoes, right? Like the shit we wear.
Yep.
That's a really simple starting point. I had an epic point to make sort of counter to that, adjacent to that, but I can't remember what it was.
We'll come back to it because I want to talk about that barefoot thing. Really, think about jiu-jitsu. You don't wear shoes in jiu-jitsu, right? Now, even though some people will put on wrestling boots, right? There's a value to that. If you're shooting a lot, you don't want to get turf toe or, you don't want to get...
You just wanted to splurge on the new kit because you're doing a wrestling class now.
I got the new Kyle.
The Kyle Dake.
Kyle Dake.
I don't know who he is, but he's a sick.
He's a weapon.
Yeah.
I got
double legs are still so shit.
I got those Jordan Burrows, those JB7s, boy.
All I see is gold, baby.
Yeah. I'm a wrestler now. But here's the thing. I saw this pretty early because the funny thing is when I started Taekwondo, there was no shoes. And then at some point, I believe that the federation's like, we need more money. There is now Adidas Taekwondo shoes.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And then people started wearing them and it was a thing. And it was like, oh, what? We've all got to buy shoes now? And then they were like, they tried it for a while and then they're like, no, you can't wear them in competition. So I was like, oh, that's weird. But now we're selling foot guards. It was like gloves.
Like the sleeve thing?
Yeah, but for your feet. Because athletes would tape like compressed foam over their feet because you kick in Taekwondo, you kick with your feet. Wrongly, but I mean, it's the game. So what was interesting was, and I started to realize each couple of years, the federation would be like, okay, now you need special gloves. And sure, they were saying, oh, it's in line with the sport, but they're just making a ton of money because you had to wear the federation ticked, we certify these gloves, so you may wear them.
Yeah.
Because they're getting a kickback, right? But what it made me realize is actually we're not getting the knuckle conditioning which used to be a thing that we used to do push-ups on our knuckles, and it was the idea that you could punch cleanly and smoothly and not break your knuckles. Anyway, whatever. And also that you try to kick with your feet so you don't break your feet, even though plenty of our kickboxing friends are just going, idiots. And I did break a bone in my foot, kicking with my foot. But speaking to jiu-jitsu, I don't lift in shoes. I don't, because we don't do jiu-jitsu in shoes. I'm always relating it back to a jiu-jitsu lens. In the same way, you don't have a weight belt when you do jiu-jitsu, even though plenty of our powerlifting friends will say, no, the weight belt is there so you can lift more. Well, I don't want to try and lift a weight that I can't lift without a weight belt. I just want to use my muscles to do that job. Same thing. I don't want to wear straps to hold more weight. If I can't hold it, I won't lift it. What a lot of you are possibly missing as a blind spot is you can't do certain things barefoot, but we do them anyway, right? Like running in built-up sneakers.
Yeah.
If you run on concrete barefoot, you run on your toes. You're not running, you're not heel striking that bad boy. Forefoot, midfoot, what have you. Same thing in jiu-jitsu. If your feet are dumb, they talk about unintelligent feet. If you haven't done a bit of work with balance, with proprioception, with agility, which is your ability to break, change direction and come back, you're going to your shit up when you're rolling. And so barefoot for me has always been the first thing in my mind, not because I necessarily want to walk around the streets barefoot, but I always just wear my visually offensive Jesus sandals.
Oh, yes.
I know that
all praise
the Dark Prince and Joe always mocking me with my
standard
free
right?
running.
Yeah, but I'm all about them.
But what the great thing is this? The great thing is because those sandals have a heel strap, it means my foot can act naturally.
Yeah, it can relax.
It can spread and push off in the way a foot would. As opposed to a lot of you are wearing flip-flops and we advocate for flip-flops in the gym as a hygiene thing.
Yeah.
But if you wear...
Shit for mechanics though.
It's bad because it tightens toes up.
Yeah. Toes and ankle.
Toes and ankle, right? And so that has a lot of carry-on effects. So first step, get barefoot. If you can, whether it's your garden or just walking around your apartment, whatever it is, spend a bit more time in your bare feet.
Yeah, and look at your feet and view them as you look at the rest of your body in the mirror. Look at your feet and be like, do they look strong?
Can I move them?
Are they, and start to look at other people's feet, and you will see just like your shoulders, just like your biceps, they also carry muscle and density to the bones and to the ligaments. And you want a foot that is dense and muscular, and stable, right? So,
spring.
I mean, this is the classic thing. If you look back at Weston A. Price, who was he went around the world.
He went and
early
studied
part of the
different societies, right?
19th century.
He was looking at, I think he wasn't just looking at feet, was he looking at teeth as well?
Yeah, he was basically comparing Westerners
To-
with more indigenous cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's looking at dental health. He's looking at eye distance, head formation, hands, like everything, feet. And he's like, wow, everyone in the West is like, looks malnourished and mutated.
Yeah.
You know, and it was because we were eating these more modern foods. We didn't have the daily activity. We wore shoes all the time. And he got these photographs, which are really interesting to look at, of, you know, classic kind of men, like middle-aged men's feet. And they're like the shape of the leather-bound shoes they're in. And then he has these indigenous feet and they're like spread and wide.
Splay.
And they're two very different, like, pieces of anatomy right there.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, I think if you just haven't formed that connection in your head, it's a good thing to see because you're like, holy shit, yeah, okay, there's stuff going on because of our modern life that's having a negative effect on my physicality.
Sure.
What I did want to say about the jiu-jitsu scenario is that you're on mats and the mats hide your inefficiency. So say with the hopping drills, you can just kind of flop on your heels and do the bouncing drills.
Yeah.
But if you go do it on the concrete,
Hard surface.
you cannot bounce on your heels.
No, sir.
And that will expose like, oh, holy shit, like I'm actually weak here. So it's a good, like, do what you can in your warm-ups, like it's all of benefit. But training on a hard floor, certain drills, like with your strength training, will expose gaps or weaknesses in the body.
Yeah, and just lastly, this is just something I want to share with you guys, just from a pure gym perspective. Typically, most gyms are not just going to let you rock in there barefoot. But what I am seeing more and more with the popularity of powerlifting and everything like this, you're going to see people wearing deadlift slippers.
Oh, yeah.
Which are basically just socks with a bit of rubber on the bottom.
Right.
They're almost like, I don't know if you guys have been to like a bounce house, like a kid's trampoline emporium, where, you know, it's just all kinds of, they give you socks that have rubberized dots or a pattern on the bottom, right? That's kind of what deadlift slippers are, except they put like a little Velcro strap across it. So to justify that you're paying $150 for all. I mean, I don't even with that. I mean, most top lifters you'll see will be lifting in some kind of sock, but plenty in barefoot. Back in the day in the gym, if you were not wearing shoes, you couldn't come in the gym. We don't allow that in here. Okay, that was back in the day. But here's a lesson for y'all. Talking about steel cap boots, right? Speaking of the tradies, the fluoro folks, those getting it in, doing the hard work. The reason why you have steel caps, and I didn't understand this, I thought it was to protect your toes. No, it's so that if a steel bar weighing a ton or more, like thousands of kilos, pounds, whatever, drops on your toe, it cuts all your toes off evenly so they're not crushed. So this is true, so they can reattach them because they have function. If you don't have the steel cap, it will smush your toes into a paste that is no longer usable.
Nah.
Yeah. 100%. I learned this at a work safety thing.
Really?
Yeah.
So it will cut your toes off cleanly?
Yeah, it'll come down and then
Sever them?
but then they can just attach them.
Wow.
So that's brutal, right? But understand this, guys. If you're loading 20 kilo plates on and off,
They're like, okay, why did we tell them that?
so why am I wearing steel cap boots
Do I
to
need
the
to
gym?
train in steel cap boots? They're
Yeah,
my new
well,
wrestling
Dennis
shoes.
Rodman used to run on the treadmill. No. What I'm saying here is this. If you wear sneakers and you drop a 20 kilo plate on your toe is still smushed. If your foot is barefoot, you know, if you're barefoot in the gym.
Oh, yeah, that whole
doesn't-
idea of like, you could hurt yourself in bed.
It doesn't mean
redundant,
shit, right?
yeah.
So my advice is this. If you feel self-conscious about getting barefoot in the gym, like really just take your shoes. Like, if you think it's not appropriate in your gym or whatever, change gyms. But you should be barefoot when you're squatting and when you're deadlifting.
Yeah.
That's what I want to advocate for. And if the, idiot staffers like, no, like if you drop a weight on your foot, you have to have shoes. The shoes do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, usually with that, it's like company policy, and even though they're clearly wrong, it's like, what am I going to do? I think if that is the case you're in, or if you are embarrassed to be barefoot, which some people are, right? It's fine. Buy some barefoot shoes.
Yeah.
Buy some Vivo barefoot or something like that, where your feet and your toes can do what they need to do, but they're enclosed in a piece of fabric so that whatever doesn't disturb anyone's insurance policy.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I think that the first thing we've got to do, get a bit more barefoot. We need to look at rolling out the arches of our feet.
Yep.
And then we've got to stretch Well, we've got to get in that deep squat position. Now, it's different for everyone. So whether you're chocking your heels or you're using a pole, getting into that deep squat position so your knee is fully flexed, your butt is down by your heel, your ass to grass squat, and then looking to do different exercises to get your knees pushing up over your toes is one of the best things you can do to improve the ankles. And then the next step up from that, from performance, is being able to do some agility, hopping, and stability work, which will directly translate to you being better on the mat.
Yeah, I would say to interject in between those 2 points would be calf raises.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like if you find the hopping stuff and that it is hard, just do calf raises.
Yeah.
Do like 3 sets of 20 or, go 10 to 20 reps. Do it a few times a week just to build that base level of strength through the ankle. And then over time, bring in the hopping.
Go to something a bit more plyometric. Well, there it is, folks. We want to fix those ankles for you. It will help you. It will translate to your BJJ. And the other thing we'd love to do is we'd love to spend more time talking with you and connecting with more folks just like you, helping them out. Help us help them out. Take 20 seconds right now. Click like, click subscribe. But also, if you're just listening to this on audio, we would love you to give us a 5-star rating. What that does is that lets, Spotify, lets iTunes know, hey, these guys are cool. And they will actually put it in front of more good jiu-jitsu folks like you. So give it a like, give it a subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate y'all.